So the ego is, when used spiritual, because there's the psychological ego that Freud talked about, which is the individual sense of self. And then there's the ego as it is usually talked about in spiritual teaching, which is the personal self. It is the idea that there is a me separate from you. And it can't be good or evil, right or wrong, because it's just a way of describing something that happens. In any moment, thought can identify itself with a form, with a body, with a set of experiences. Consciousness can become identified with that which is arising inside it. The mirror can start to think it is that which is being reflected in it. And we would call that illusion the ego. So the idea of destroying the ego comes from one of the absolute strong traditions in spirituality, which is the way of the warrior. And the way of the warrior, the path of the spiritual warrior, is that you personify energy. So you create ego as an enemy or obstacle and overcome it. You create fear as an enemy and overcome it. You create love as an ally and work with it. And that is a path towards higher consciousness that is taught and has been taught throughout the ages, because it's quite easy for people to connect to, especially people who grew up in warring cultures, warrior cultures. But there is another path, the path of love, the path of peace, the path of the adventurer, which instead of anthropomorphizing energy into forms that it can align with or fight against, it deforms life. It turns it back into the energy and elements from which it's made and harmonizes as best it can with those energies. So if you are on the path of the warrior, destroying the ego is a step along the path. And what you discover when you destroy the ego is it's like Obi-Wan Kenobi in Star Wars. When you, with the lightsaber, there's nothing there but the clothes that it wore. If you are on the path of the adventurer, whenever it starts to seem like there is an ego that must be fought with, overcome, or destroyed, that lets you know, oh, I'm back into the illusion. And you reharmonize with the flow and energy of thought. The beauty of those two paths, as it is taught, is that if you imagine somebody walking the path of the warrior, turning left at the base of the mountain, and somebody walking the path of the adventurer to the right of the mountain, when they meet on the far side of the mountain and carry on the path together, they both have so much power and love that you can't tell which path they took to get there. I, as it happens, am somebody who is drawn to the path of the adventurer, but grew up in a culture that valued the path of the warrior. So for a long time, my spiritual journey was just kind of a mess, because everyone kept telling me, oh no, you're supposed to do this, and you're supposed to fight that, you're supposed to overcome that. And it had no appeal. And I remember when I even found out there was another way, I laughed for 10 minutes at the idea that I had spent my whole life feeling like a failure for not walking what I thought was the spiritual path, only to discover that there was a path that was made for me that had been around for thousands of years. I just didn't know existed till I did. But once I found it, I never felt the need to look back.